Now, on the US All Sports, a very interesting setup we have here since the beginning of the week, as we have been buying this commodity in the last 24 hours, giving us a significant amount of profit. As at this point in time, we are currently running with about of close to 200 pips in profit at this point. So before we go into the details of what is going on right now, let's first of all take a quick look at what really happened at the beginning of the week and what incited the idea of buying or selling this commodity through the course of the week. Now, the first thing I want us to do here is to take a quick holistic view of what is really going on the 1 hour time frame. Now, if you look at this structure closely, remember that we acknowledge that this price action here is looking very bullish, and to further emphasize the strength of the buyers here, we connected the series of higher lows to give us an ascending trend line to work with. We even took it a step further to um, connect the series of higher highs, giving us another ascending trend line, giving us an ascending channel to work with for the week. Now, things got a little bit more interesting during the course of last week, as that was where our center of focus was at the beginning of the week. And one of the key features of the market structure last week was this beautiful demand zone identified around the $75-ish. And within this area, we had a demand zone, as we saw how sellers struggled as soon as price action got into that area throughout the course of last week. Now, we saw what happened here. We saw the significant breakout of the structure, giving us a platform for bullish momentum. We saw as soon as price came back again to drop to the downside, we saw buy pressure resume one more time. The same thing also happened midweek. As you can see here, sellers found it difficult to break down that structure. Then on the last trading day of last week, we saw another attempt by the sellers to break through and was met with strong resistance from the buyers to give us a beautiful demand zone to work with. Then prior to the beginning of the week, we were thinking that we could see reversal patterns or buy pressure around this demand zone to incite a bullish momentum, but that was not what happened here. As we saw, the week started with a bearish gap. Then we saw price action caught within a range just right below our key level at the $75.25 level. Though we had a couple of sell positions at the beginning of the week, but we saw here that those moves did not last long. Remember, we sold the breakdown of the range. We sold here again. And at both instances, we saw how price action moved about 80 pips, 50 pips respectively. And if we had moved our stop loss accordingly, like just we normally do in this community, when price action significantly moves in our favor, we move our stop losses to secure the position. And if you had done that correctly, you would have been taken out with a modest size of profit, or at a worst case scenario, break even. And if you remember what we saw here yesterday, we saw a very interesting pattern in this market, revealing the potentials that buyers might likely take over the market. And one of the things we saw here was the way price action was reacting to the lowest point it has gotten to this week at the $73.75 level. So we saw here that when price gets into the structure, we saw our buyers come in to negate all potentials by the sellers. The same thing also happened here during the later part of the New York session. As you can see, sellers did not even have the momentum to even get close to that demand zone. And during the early hours of yesterday, we also acknowledged a sharp rejection of the structure, giving us an idea that we are likely going to be buying, at least for yesterday's trading session. And one thing I mentioned here yesterday is that we are not going to consider selling the US All Spot unless a breakdown of that demand zone happens, taking out all this buy position there to give us a confirmation to join that decline to the downside. And of course, this never happened. Hence, the idea of buying was more on our radar for yesterday's trading session. And remember, we had ourselves positioned just right above the $74.45 level to capture our first buy position for the week. And since then, we have been buying the US oil spot. And remember, we also identified multiple levels where we said we were going to be utilizing it to maximize the potential of this bullish move. So we had key levels at the $75 area where we said we were going to be buying the breakout retest, adding more position to our existing trade. We also had another breakout retest of the $75.25 level to capitalize on this bullish move. So it has been quite an interesting week for us, and congratulations to everyone who was resilient and stable and in fact being on standby to catch these opportunities. Well done to you guys for being on standby, and you know how we do it. Whenever price action has moved significantly well in our favor, we want to of course be moving all our stop losses to secure the current buy position. And from the look of things right now, based on this current market structure, I will be suggesting that anywhere around the $75.25 or below it seems most appropriate to secure this current position, while we of course want to give enough room for price action to breathe, with the anticipation that we could have a retest, a retracement back to gain some momentum for an uptrend continuation. So now, with a well secured position at this point in time, what is going to be our next plan on the US oil spot for today? Well, this morning, while I was trying to decipher how price action is going to be playing out for today, I want to call our attention to something I made emphasis on here yesterday, and that is the demand zone that we have here. And I told us all that if price action finds higher highs and comes within that zone, that any buy pressure around this area will give us an opportunity to buy, as price action will be considered to be back within the buyer's territory. And for the fact that price still remains above this demand zone, I'm of the opinion that we'll continue to look out for more buying opportunities in this market. So while doing this, I was able to identify a new resistant level. So our center of focus for today is around this resistant level at the $75.85 area, which happens to be the highest point price action got to during yesterday's trading session. Now, I wanted to have my buy stop order above that structure, which has already been triggered, though I'm running a loss on that one. And let me quickly say this here: for those who are already profitable on the US oil spot, you can afford to leverage on the profit you had made so far this week to test waters around the $75.85 level to see if a buy position there is going to click. But if you are not yet in the US oil trade, that is, this is your first time trading the US oil for this week, then I will advise you to remain patient for the breakout retest of the structure. Now we already have a breakout of the structure. Price action has come into the structure to retest it, and I hope that we will continue to see signs that will support the idea of buying, which will come in the form of multiple rejection or buying pressure from this area, and in fact it could transition into a reversal pattern to inside another wave of bullish momentum. So at this point, you could have a buy stop order above the $75.85 level, since we already cited the breakout of that structure, and let's hope that price action will continue to the upside. Stop losses should be dovetailing to about, let's see, about 30 to 40 pips thereabouts, so that we can give enough room for price action to breathe. So at this point in time, this is what we are going to be looking out for to by the XAU So things are still looking very bullish at this point. But one thing for sure, you know how we do it in this community, we would always want to keep tabs with the opposite direction too as well. So we want to consider the potentials that the sellers also have, so that whenever a bearish momentum begins, we are also on standby to catch that move. Now, one of the things we are going to be doing here to be able to capitalize on this move, first of all, I want to acknowledge a trend line here, which of course I think we are going to be using to guide trading activity for today. So I don't like this one. I don't like the extension of this trend line. So let me just remove it. So that's up. So it's not even that. Okay. Okay, let me do it like this. So I want to project this trend line into the new pivot lows we have here. So I would like to give it a different color to emphasize its importance based on this current structure. So I will just give it a wine color and make it a little bit thicker, so we have something like this. Now going into the, if you look at the structure closely, let's see why that is. We saw how this area has been a major determinant. We saw the breakout, we saw the breakdown retest, and we saw here that since price broke out of this trend line yesterday, price has remained above the trend line. And we saw pivot lows rather, inciting another move to the upside. So this trend line here is very, very important. So you indeed want to mark this trend line on your chart right now. So as it's going to be a major yardstick to guide our trading activity for today. So what this simply means here is that if price continues to remain above this trend lines, we shall feel comfortable in our buy position while we also look out for more opportunities to buy. And another advantage of this trend line is that it will help us to be able to determine an appropriate zone or level for our stop losses. So our stop losses will just be right below the trend line. Of course, if the trend line is broken to the downside, then we will start thinking of selling. So now looking at the structure here, what will make us want to sell the USOIL spot for today is for initially I wanted price to break down this $75.25 level, which of course is our key level for the week. And you know that whenever we have price breaking down our key level, we want to be looking out for patterns and structures that will support the idea of selling, where a retest will of course give us more opportunity to join. However, because of this trend line that we have here, I'm thinking that we can maximize the potential of joining the bearish move early enough, even before the breakdown of that key level happens. And so if we do have a breakdown of this trend line, then a retest of structure followed by selling pressure on our lower time frame will give us the privilege of joining a sell move, and then a sell stop order below the key level at a $75.25 level will welcome more opportunities to capitalize on that bearish move to the downside. So this is how we are going to be managing our trades for today on the USOIL spot. So if you do have any questions whatsoever as regards to this current market setup, feel free to let me know in the comment section. So I will be taking the next 10 to 15 seconds to see if there are any questions before I move on to the next instrument. Then there's another thing I would like us to acknowledge here. I told you that this market outlook is still looking very bullish, and we should be having a buy stop order above the $75.85 level. Then I also noticed another high here, which we have around the zone, which is located at the $76.20 level. You also want to be marking this level out on your chart, as we can use it to add more buy position to our existing trade. So let's see how price action will play out in the next couple of hours, as we still look forward to more buying opportunities. But if a breakdown of the descending trend line happens, then we will have no other choice than to start considering selling this commodity. So if you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to let me know in the comment section, And I will be taking the next 10 to 15 seconds to read through the comments and see if there are any questions before we move on to the next instrument. And you can as well take that time to mark out these levels on your chart, as you will be needing them as a reference point to guide your independent trading decisions.